I am going to talk about my favorite gangster and mafia films and their most talked about scenes through them. For my favorite mafia movies when it comes to Al Pacino are Godfather 1 and 2 and the movie Scarface. Now, in the movie Godfather, basically Marlon Brando plays the Godfather, but then after his character gets sick and ill, then Al Pacino takes over in the role as taking over the head of the mafia family. Now, in the movie, the couple most talked about scenes was that one guy, Waltz, who was supposed to be a movie producer, and he refuses to give Marlon Brando's godson in the movie a movie role that he wanted because it would put him back to it would put him at the top of the fame business, and the guy was trying to run him out. So in retaliation for him not giving Johnny the role, they killed his most prized horse, and basically they chopped off the horse's head and threw it in bed with the guy, and then when he wakes up, he freaks out. And then eventually he caved in and gave Johnny the role after that happened. Another most talked about scene in the movie was when James Caan, who plays Sonny, is sitting on the highway, and he's waiting to get through this through the ramp, and these cars blocked him in, so he couldn't get out, and they they fucking shot the hell out of him. And then in Godfather 2, it was about basically Al Pacino reprises his role as Michael, and in the movie there's ups and downs in the movie. Basically, he's still head of the mafia family, but he had multiple people in the movie trying to kill him, and especially his brother. But even though the brother, Fredo, claims he didn't know anything about the attempted hit, and then his wife, who played by Diane Keaton in the first movie, basically was with him at the beginning of the second movie, but then she starts falling out of favor with him and basically they divorce. And basically in the movie, he kills his brother because he kills his own brother because he believes that the brother betrayed him. And then my other favorite movie is Scarface, with Al Pacino also. And in that movie, it talks about his rise and fall in the cocaine business. Now, he knew exactly where to get cocaine and what was pure and what was not, but he became so full of himself that was his fall. And that was like his downfall for that, because he became so full of himself and so arrogant. He even killed his own friend because his best friend in the movie was played by Stephen Bauer. And in the movie, he kills Stephen Bauer because he shows up at the house and he sees his sister Gina there, and then he sees Stephen Bauer come down, and then he kills him in a cocaine-fueled rage. Now, I don't know if you would consider it a mafia movie or not, but kind of goes along with it, is the movie Blood In, Blood Out, also known as Bound by Honor, which is one of my favorite gangster films, but it centers on a Mexican gang, and it's three cousins: Paco, played by Benjamin Bratt, and then Miklo, played by Damian Chapa, and then Crucito, played by Jesse Barriga. Now, in the movie, Paco was a gang member turned cop. Cruz was an aspiring artist, and Miklo basically killed a rival gang member and ended up in jail for life, and not just once but twice. Now there was a scene in the movie where basically Miklo attacks the rival gang called Tres Puntos, which means three-peat. Now the group that Miklo was in, along with Cruz and Paco, their gang was called Vatos Locos, which means crazy. Now in the movie, Miklo attacks the rival gang, and in retaliation, the head leader of Tres Puntos, the guy's character name was Spider, and he basically when Cruz was getting laid, they pull him out of the car, and they damage him by body slamming him onto a fire hydrant, damaging Cruz's back for life. Now, in retaliation, after Miklo and Paco find out that's what Spider did, they retaliate by killing Spider and attacking the rival gang. So and then during the commotion, after they kill Spider, Miklo gets shot by Spider before Miklo kills Spider. So Miklo was hurt, and they try to run him to the hospital, but instead they crash the car and they get caught by the cops for speeding. So as an alternative, Paco's given two choices. He could either go to jail, or he could go to boot camp and turn his life around. So as an alternative, he chose boot camp and became a cop. Miklo, since Miklo's character in the movie had already a rap sheet for arrest and stuff like that, they didn't think that boot camp would help him, so they sent him to jail. And then he basically goes to jail, and basically he starts hanging out with a group called La Onda, which is the Mexican gang that was in the prison that he hung around with. Now, in retaliation for him to be admitted into La Onda, he had to kill somebody, and so he did. And he kills the head guy of the gambling inmate, Lanny Flaherty, who plays Big Al. So he gains Big Al's trust during a sexual encounter, and he stabs him to death, and that's how he gets into La Onda. After 9 years of serving prison time, he gets released. And then in the movie, after 9 years of prison time, Miklo gets paroled, and he starts hanging out with one of the other inmates that was in jail with him, Popeye, played by Carlos Carrasco. So Carlos Carrasco sets him up in an apartment, and he gets So he gets an apartment with Carlos Carrasco, and then Carlos Carrasco tells him that basically at your address for 3 months, you can't move out. So he's forced to basically be there, even though he doesn't want to be there. And then in retaliation, because he was getting ripped out of money from the tire shop, that basically he gets so basically he goes in on an armored car deal, and then his cousin Paco was called to it, and in retaliation, Paco couldn't let Miklo go, so he shoots him, and Miklo's leg has to be amputated. Now, the one thing about that movie, and it's well coordinated in the aspect of they did drag it out for 3 hours and 10 minutes, that basically when Miklo goes back to jail, this time he was not going to be released because they couldn't trust him to be released after this happened. And in the movie, he decides to orchestrate an attempt. So basically, he finds out that the dope game, that the dope is where the money's at, and of course, Montana, who was the head of La Onda, didn't want anything to do with drugs. So Miklo sets up the BGA by sending a forged pic of Bonafide's comb to this guy Wilson in the prison. And so what he does is that, so since he set that up, and basically even though he loved Montana, he had him killed because he wouldn't go along with the drug business. And then at the end of the movie, he Miklo uses his cousin Paco to basically call a truce, and even after lying to his own cousin Paco, he kills off all the gang members in the prison. He kills the BGA and the Aryan Vanguard along with that, and basically Paco, after that happened, Paco comes to see him and cuts him off. If it wasn't for Cruz basically talking to him and basically telling him to forgive not just yourself but forgive Miklo for everything that's going on, that basically you could come to terms with reality. And it's a really good movie for anybody who wants to see it. even though it's back from the 90s, and it's a really excellent movie, well written, if you could stand 3 hours and 10 minutes of watching it.